favorites, the podcast, part of the Volume Podcast Network. I am Chad Millman of the Action Network. Let's get to it, folks. We're going to welcome in my co-host, my companion, my compadre, my BFF professional better, Simon Hunter. Hello, Simon.
Chad, another week closer to football, brother.
We're getting there. What I don't like, here's what I don't like. I don't like when people are like, only 4 more Sundays till kickoff. Because the truth is, I also like my Sundays as they are right now. Like the other day, it was Sunday. I was reading, at like 11 o'clock, and it was stress-free. And I thought to myself, very soon, my Sundays are not going to be stress-free, and they're going to be super busy. So as much as I'm looking forward to the season and what we're doing today, I don't want people like counting me down. You know what I mean?
Well, that tweet's not for you then. I need the countdown because I get lost in the summer where I'm just got my head in my own ass, and all of a sudden I see that I'm like, oh my God, only 7 more weeks of faking like I'm a normal person until I can get back to the real life.
Guy,
That's life with football.
I am 6 weeks from my younger son leaving the house for college. I don't need reminders that time is passing us by.
You can't wait. Empty nester. It's the best.
Listen,
Chad just walking around in his underwear. Can't wait.
I already walk around in my underwear. Today we are doing our annual summer episode, diving into the top 10 fantasy moves of the NFL offseason, and we're going to bring in the big guns. How do I define the big guns, you may ask? Well, last week there was a very special release from the independent website we've cited here many, many times, Fantasy Pros. Fantasy Pros objectively ranks the projections of the top fantasy football experts in the world. We cite Fantasy Pros rankings all the time. Gives us a composite top 10 list of the most accurate fantasy football projections over the past 3 NFL seasons. That's what they just released. On today's show, we are lucky enough to have 20% of that list on the show. That's right, 2 people from that top 10 list. You could then hear them every week talking all things fantasy on Action Network's Fantasy Flex podcast. Our beloved colleagues, 2 of the best in the freaking business. Sean Koerner, called the GOAT of fantasy projections by Fantasy Pros last year. Not to be outdone. Hot on his heels for GOATness, Chris Raybon. Boys, it is so good to see you.
Likewise.
Likewise. Anyone can respond. Have you guys never done a show?
We're mid-season form.
Like, do you know?
You left me speechless. Although, Chad, I do agree with you with these countdowns for the season starting. But I'm also excited for the start of preseason. I think you're missing out on some preseason action too.
That's true. There is some preseason action. We're going to get to that. God, I mean, we'll probably got preseason action in 3 weeks.
Yep.
Listen, I'm glad you guys decided to speak. That's fantastic. Raybon, hello. I don't know that you've had a comment so far, and I know I didn't ask a question, but we're just conversating here.
Miss you, Chad. Glad to be back. A little disappointed that the NBA Finals couldn't go longer because I think I did even better on that than I did in fantasy projections, but excited to get another season going, and hopefully I can match Sean once again.
Let's dig in, boys. Chris and Sean, you've both compiled a top 10 list of your own, outlining the 10 biggest moves of the NFL offseason. Chris, you're up first. I'm going to ask you, give me your biggest move from the offseason.
So I think the biggest move is Liam Coen going from Tampa Bay to Jacksonville to become the head coach. He was calling plays in Tampa last year. And I just think this has the potential to be a massive upswing for the Jags offense. And it could create massive value for pretty much every single Jags fantasy player versus their ADP. So last season was Cohen's only season coordinating the Bucs, running that offense. He took them from 20.5 points per game in 2023 to 29.5 last season. That's a 9-point increase. That's pretty much unheard of. And we already thought they were doing well just with Canales, and they might even take a step back without him. So Liam Coen did a great job there. I think Trevor Lawrence can beat his ADPs going around the quarterback 20. I think he should be more so a low-end QB1, high-end QB2. I have him QB12. Rookie Basil Tootin at running back. I think he could smash his ADPs going as the running back 44. I have him about 5 spots higher right now. His ceiling's even higher. Brian Thomas Jr. has upside to be the number 1 wide receiver in the entire NFL this year. So, I know last year, Simon, we were just talking off air how Sean was super high on him and he ended up crushing. I don't think it's done now. Like this offense with the potential for Trevor Lawrence to improve and take a step forward, I think Thomas has an unlimited ceiling, even with Travis Hunter there. Best ball, Diami Brown, tight end Brenton Strange. Both of those guys, I think, are going to provide some value as well. But really just love this Coen move. And if you look at like, okay, well, what's he going to do? Well, I think he helps Trevor Lawrence in 4 distinct ways. Quick passing game. Lawrence was bottom 5 in yards per attempt and throws under 2.5 seconds. So those are kind of, the design throws and the things that the coordinator can really kind of scheme up and help the quarterback, kind of determine where he should go with the ball and get it out. He wasn't getting any help last year, just 5.1 yards an attempt. Baker Mayfield was up at 6.8. He was top 2 in yardage and touchdowns on throws under 2.5. Route combinations, scheming guys open in space. Trevor Lawrence, 4.8 yards after catch per completion did his receivers average. Mayfield was up at 6.0, and he took a significant jump from the year before when Coen wasn't there. In the red zone, Trevor Lawrence has really struggled his entire career. That's one of the reasons why he really hasn't broken out. 20% red zone touchdown conversion rate. Mayfield went from 23% in 2023 to 37% last year with Coen, and some of the red zone routes and things that the play calling down there was really, really good, I thought, for the Bucs last year. And then the run game. Coen got guys to buy in. He took a Bucs run game that you'll remember. 2 years, 22 and 23. They were bottom of the league in rushing, couldn't do anything. He took an offensive line that was 31st in yards before contact to 6th last year. And it wasn't just Bucky Irving. The line, those are the yards before contact. You're going to see more reflected in that number. But it was both of the same tackles, one of the same interior linemen, so 3 of the same 5 linemen starting, and a rookie center. So a lot of it was just Coen getting guys to buy in and switching up the run schemes and things, which is why I also like Bayshaw Tootin, the rookie running back. I think ETN and Bigsby are kind of shaky right now. Like you got to kind of, it's touch and go. I think one of those guys will probably be a healthy and active or may end up off the roster by the time that the season starts. But the reason I like Tootin is because when you look at Bucky Irving last year, he was a day 3 pick. First week of the season, 11 touches. First 3 weeks, 10 touches per game. So he had a role right off the bat in Coen's offense. So did rookie Jalen McMillan, 80% snap count right off the bat. So I don't think they drafted Tootin for no reason. This guy's got blazing speed. No one's going to be Bucky Irving, but if Tootin's upside, like his ceiling, is Bucky Irving, he's going as the RB44. So I just really love what Coen can bring to this entire Jags offense from Lawrence to Thomas on down.
Simon, I know you want to ask Sean about his top of the board impact move, but let me ask a quick follow-up for Chris, which is, give me your, Simon and I have talked about our top 10 quarterback lists, and we both like Baker as a top 10 quarterback. We both had him at number 10. You're just talking about how important Liam Coen was to Baker's success. How much of an impact do you think Coen leaving has on Baker's success this year?
I think it's going to be a little bit of a downgrade. Baker just put up such an amazing, and not just Baker, that Bucs offense in general, put up such an amazing season, Chad. You and I have talked about this, that there's going to be some natural regression that I'm factoring in. I still think Baker is a top 10 fantasy quarterback, but he was the QB3 last year. I think he's going to be more toward the low end of that QB1, the middle to the low end, somewhere in that 6 to 12 range. I think I have him number 6. So I expect a little bit of regression. Still has a lot of weapons and a decent O-line, but Cohn's impact cannot be understated either. So I think really you're looking at Lawrence kind of closing that gap to Mayfield. Because remember, before Cohn got there, Lawrence and Mayfield were kind of the same guy. It was like a guy who was drafted number 1 overall, hadn't really broken out, had some shaky coaching throughout much of his career, some shaky supporting cast and whatnot. So I think it really helps Lawrence, but I do expect Baker to take a bit of a step back just because it's really hard to put up 41 touchdowns, year over year. So I think you're going to see some regression there.
Sean, nice. We all know the key to winning leagues, it really is to hitting those late round veterans, right? But it's also the unknown, the rookies. Like that to me, so many years I did so well as veteran quarterback, veterans at certain positions, but I took high risk plays on rookies. Last year was the freak year of all years, right? Like these rookies last year, we never seen anything like that, right? Between Bowers, Neighbors, Bucky, Jane Daniels, like we never had anything like that. I love right away, we're talking about Jacksonville. Break it down to me. Travis Hunter, what do we think ahead into the season with him and his value right now, where he's going at in the drafts?
Yeah, so, one of the biggest offseason moves I thought was the Jaguars trading up to get Travis Hunter with the 2nd overall pick because he is a true unicorn player, a two-way player at Colorado. And he's not just solid, okay on both ends. He was dominant as a wide receiver and a cornerback. So, he won the Biletnikoff Award as the nation's top receiver and was named the defensive player of the year. So he's similar to Shohei Ohtani, where he's truly one of the best on both sides, at least at the collegiate level. We'll see how that translates to the NFL, but it's just going to be fascinating to see, how they plan on using him on offense and defense. I think that's one of the things I'm going to be looking for in training camp. Right now he's going around wide receiver 30 in early drafts, which might be a little too rich, just given just the uncertainty on just how much he will play on offense. He might need to sit some plays or drives to stay fresh if he's playing a lot of defense too. So this is one of those situations where I agree with Raybon, where Liam Cohen could really, create a breakout season for Trevor Lawrence. And then, Travis Hunter would probably hit at wide receiver 30, but there is some uncertainty here. But I will say from a personal point of view, I can't wait to project in the season. We might see the first ever receptions plus tackles prop we've ever seen with Travis Hunter. So I'll be waiting for that, and I will bet it, even if there's a slight edge one way or the other, but I can't wait to potentially have a receptions and tackles prop. So I'm hoping books are going to, plan on offering that market this year.
Well, look, last year, Simon said it off the top, you nailed Brian Thomas, right? Like I remember in one of our preview shows, you were talking about Brian Thomas Jr. and his ability to impact the Jags, and that you thought he might be the most important most important receiver drafted in the first round. So you crushed that one. It's interesting to me, both you and Sean, and I don't know, or you and Chris, and I don't know if you guys coordinated this, have moved to the Jaguars as your most significant impact offseason moves. And as someone who is thinking about when Simon and I are going to do our playoff team predictions, the Jags are one of those teams that I'm struggling with, and all of a sudden I'm feeling differently based on what you guys just said.
Remember, Chad, this is fantasy we're talking here, though. Just keep that
in mind. I know.
Yeah. And it's the thing about the Jags is look at their ADPs. That's really what it is. Like Simon said, it's about value. They're likely top running back by the end of the year is going outside the top 40. Travis Hunter, one of the most talented wide receivers to come out of this, of this generation, is the wide receiver 30. Brian Thomas, who has number 1 overall fantasy player, like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase type upside, is going wide receiver 8. Their tight end is going 20th. Their quarterback is going 20th. I mean, everybody is a value in this offense in terms of their ceiling, and that's what you need in fantasy, ceiling. You don't want to hit on every pick, but if you hit some ceiling plays, you're good.
Chris, speaking of ceiling, I don't know how much there is for your next big offseason impact quarterback, but explain what is next on your board.
Yeah, so I'm going to group these three together. Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, Jonnu Smith to the Steelers. And I think, listen, Aaron Rodgers, we know I've been ready to write him off for ages now. He is what he is. But I do think that this move could be good for DK Metcalf because you're going to an Arthur Smith offense. Remember, Arthur Smith, Metcalf's playing the position, that X position. AJ Brown was a top 15 wide receiver with a pretty shaky quarterback play and a low volume pass offense for Arthur Smith. Drake London, that was his role as well. And what we know about Aaron Rodgers is, number one, he's going to throw a lot of passes. I mean, last year on the Jets, who were supposed to be like a good defense or whatever, like Aaron Rodgers was, top 2 in the league in pass attempts. So I think Pittsburgh could throw a little more than we might even expect. They have been aggressive at going out and trying to rebuild their pass offense, but also Aaron Rodgers always has an alpha receiver, right? Like last season, he targeted Garrett Wilson 26.5% of his routes before Devontae got there. Then Devontae 27.5 once he got there. That's pretty much across the board almost every year, except I think that 1 year in Green Bay when guys were, hurt. Aaron Rodgers is going to just force feed his number one receiver. So DK Metcalf kind of got usurped last year by Jackson Smith and the Jigba. Metcalf really, it was Lockett and then it was, JSN. So Metcalf really hasn't had that opportunity in a while to be, this guy that can get, a 28, 30% target share. But in this offense, he definitely could. So I think this is good for him. And Arthur Smith, he loves Jonnu Smith. I know, he's been kind of downgraded since he got there, but this is a guy who he was the tight end 2, the number 2 tight end behind Kyle Pitts, and had a very, very good season and a lot of TE1 weeks. So I think that this, it looks ugly because of Rodgers, but they have a good defense and this and that. But especially for Metcalf, I think he's got significant upside. I wouldn't shy away from him at all. I think the route combinations that Smith is going to ask him to run, they kind of got away from that in Seattle in these last couple of years. But I think it really is going to suit Metcalf particularly well.
Raybon, excellent, usurped. And we appreciate you continuing to make this the most literate sports betting podcast in America. Simon, take it away.
Sean, last year, I called my shot on Saquon. I remember I came on the show, and I laughed how I was getting Saquon in the 3rd round in every league. I couldn't believe it. And I said on the show, I had him at number 3. Not 3rd running back, 3rd overall in drafts. And the pushback was the Hurts tush push, which I totally understood, but my pushback was, he's going from the Giants' offensive line to the Eagles' offensive line. And we saw it play out, right? And even with bad luck, I think there's some crazy stats. Saquon had 10 tackles at the 1, and he only scored 2 of those. The other 8 went to Hurts. This year, my guy, I'm so happy he's on your list, Genty, to the Raiders. Talk about it to me, baby. I'm all in. Am I crazy for taking him in the 1st round? Am I drinking the Kool-Aid? Should I be calming down here? What am I seeing that others aren't seeing on this kid right now? Because I love the value he's going for in drafts right now. You can either get him late 1st, early 2nd in most drafts right now.
Yeah, no, I don't think you're crazy for taking him. He's considered by many a generational running back talent. I mean, he went 6 overall to the Raiders, making him just the 6th running back drafted inside the top 10 over the past decade. He led all of college football in rushing by over 600 yards, which, it's insane production. Sure, he played at Boise State, so he wasn't, facing SEC level defenses or anything. But when you just look at the underlying metrics, his measurables, back him up as just being an elite prospect. And I do love this landing spot as well for him, but also for the Raiders. They ranked dead last in EPA per rush last year. So that wasn't going to fly with new head coach Pete Carroll. So he had to get his guy here in the top 10. So he's going to be a workhorse back from day one, both running the ball and, being on passing downs. Like he's going to catch balls as well. So that's kind of a rare thing these days. We have a lot of committees, but he's going to be a true workhorse back and push, top 5 value as a rookie. And Chad, I'm thrilled to say You won't need to ask me on the side about Sincere McCormick props this year. No need for that because this is Genty's backfield. He has zero competition. And again, as long as he stays healthy, he could push top 5 upside here.
What do you think?
Well-
Top 5 pick by September?
Top 5 overall.
Yeah.
No,
He's gonna
I
get
think
steam.
the
If he has one good preseason game, the steam is going to be insane.
That's true because he probably will get some reps in preseason. A lot of these vets we won't see in preseason have those highlight plays, but we could see, an 80-yard touchdown run by him, and that could certainly bump him up. I think it would take a lot to get him inside the top 5. There's some good receivers,
Yeah.
that it would require to fall out of the top 5. But certainly, top 10, if the hype is there, I could certainly see him, getting inside the top 10 before the season starts.
Koerner, I sincerely thank you for allowing me to not have to ask you about Sincere McCormick
Yes.
props this
It's a
year.
gift for both of us.
And I thank you for continuing to allow us to make this the most literate sports betting podcast in America. Raybon, staying on the theme of running backs, give it to me.
Yeah, so let's talk Amarian Hampton going to the Chargers. Now, Najee Harris also going to the Chargers from Pittsburgh. I don't think this is good for Najee. He was a guy that we could kind of rely on as low-end running back 2 in Pittsburgh. He would always get enough volume ahead of Jaylen Warren. But now I think he's more firmly in that running back 3 territory, outside the top 30. But remember, this is a Greg Roman offense. And last season, they had like the ghost of J.K. Dobbins and the ghost of Gus Edwards. Like those were their 2 top running backs. And so I don't think they ran the ball as much as they even wanted to. And they were still 12th in running back carries and 7th in rushing touchdowns for running backs. And in the 13 games with Dobbins, they averaged 10 more carries per game for their backs than they did in the 4 that he missed. So Greg Roman, every single year that he's been a coordinator, his offenses have finished top 11 in rushing attempts, but really it was top 9 and top 7 all but 2 years. And his worst finish was last year. The first time he finished outside the top 10. And I think it was because you had, Edwards really couldn't do anything. Kamani Vidal was like a nothing. And then Dobbins got hurt for 4 games. So I do think that you're going to see a significant uptick in rushing attempts for the Chargers this season. And I think it benefits Hampton the most. I mean, you don't draft a guy right there, in the first round if you're not intending to use him a ton. That's just what we've seen if you go back and look at, first round running back picks, especially this day and age where, the position is a little bit devalued. This was a deeper running back class. So the fact that Hampton still went, right there outside the top 20 in this draft to the Chargers, I think is significant. So I like him to be he has RB1 upside. And remember, Dobbins was splitting work with Gus Edwards when he was healthy too. Like Gus Edwards was hurt some of the time, but Dobbins and Edwards were kind of splitting work, and Dobbins was still a very, very productive, high upside back last year for the Chargers. So I think Hampton can kind of slide right in that role as a younger guy. And then Najee's going to kind of be an upgrade on Edwards, but that's a downgrade for Najee. So I think those 2 guys are going in opposite directions. And I'm not even going to talk about the July 4th incident with Mr. Harris.
I mean, what the fuck? I'm not look, I've made my mistakes with fireworks. I can remind everybody of the circa 1985 bottle rocket war that my friends and I had on the playground at Ravinia Grammar School.
They had fireworks in 1985?
Well, we made them at home.
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
Just matches and cardboard and hollowed out ski poles. But come on, man. Like, you're an adult at this point. You got to know how to manage the fireworks, especially if you're a professional athlete, especially when we have professional athlete fireworks cautionary tales stories. Good God.
I have one stupid fireworks story, and it's when I was 16, which I think there's a cutoff. After you're at it, once you're into your 20s, you shouldn't be having stupid firework conversations, right, Chad?
No.
So my bad one was had a party in my basement, 16 years old. Buddy brings over fireworks, and we have the bright idea to throw fireworks at one another in my basement. And again,
Yeah, but Simon, that's what I did when I was 15 years old on a playground with hollowed out ski poles, shooting them at each other.
and sure enough, pretty drunk. Someone standing against a couch, and it says, "I'm kind of hot." And they turn around, and my entire couch was lit up and fire in my parents' basement. And my house smelled like bird plastic for a month. God bless my parents, Chad. Sean, let's get to you, my guy.
Speaking of setting stuff on fire, Sean.
This is Chad's question, so I'm shocked I'm the one that gets to ask it. Ben Johnson, the Bears. How fired up are we for the fantasy aspect of it? Are there guys who are upgrading because of it? Like, give me everything Ben Johnson, Bears, fantasy talk.
Yeah, so I think this is one of the biggest offseason moves was, the Bears hiring Ben Johnson to be the head coach. After he was the Lions offensive coordinator the past 3 seasons, led them to be one of the top offenses in the league. He's just like a really creative play caller, really innovative. I think he's going to be able to maximize this offense, which, has a handful of fantasy relevant players, but it starts with Caleb Williams, who was last year's #1 overall pick, who had a very up and down rookie season. Sure, some of that you could blame on Caleb, but I think a lot of it had to do with poor coaching, and his offensive line didn't help either. He took 68 sacks. I mean, if you watch any Bears game, you knew that was the big issue, was all those sacks. But according to the underlying metrics, he was responsible for about 45% of those sacks, which is right in line with league average. So I think just with improved offensive line, they signed a handful of veterans this year, should improve the offensive line. But I think, Ben Johnson's ability to scheme plays should help Caleb. The first read will be open. So that's going to, help prevent a lot of these detrimental sacks and throwing the ball away, things like that. So I think that's going to help a ton. I was also pleased to see, they drafted 2 quality pass catchers in the draft in Luther Burden and Colson Loveland, who I loved heading into the draft. He gives me Jimmy Graham vibes. Like, he's going to be a legit tight end. And I just love the fact that he landed with Ben Johnson. If you remember a couple years ago, I was all worked up that Sam Laporta got drafted by the Lions in the second round. And he broke the rookie record for receptions this season until Brock Bowers broke it last year. But still, it goes to show that just a really good tight end can excel as a rookie in this offense. So, Loveland's a guy I've been attacking at the, late tight end 1 range. I think it's a great landing spot for him. On the flip side, there could be a ripple effect here. The Lions offense has been damn near perfect these last couple seasons. So if we see any regression, which is just probably coming no matter what, I think people will kind of point to Ben Johnson being gone, being the reason why. So I think just it was a massive coaching move that impacts half of the, the NFC North. So I think this is just a massive, massive offseason move. And, it gives me confidence. Caleb Williams having a year 2 breakout. I like DJ Moore. Roma Dunze could bounce back this year. So it has a ton of fantasy implications. And, a lot of people are very optimistic about the Bears this year. I know that scares you, Chad, but I think it's warranted here.
Look, number one,
and don't forget about the O line. Like they
Yes.
redid their entire interior. Joe Tooney, Drew Dowman, those were both top. Tooney was number 7 out of 77 guards. Dowman was number 4 out of 40 centers, and Jonah Jackson graded highly as well. So you have that interior line. So don't even sleep on a guy like DeAndre Swift. Like this whole offense, I think, could take a step forward. To Sean's point.
Number one, excellent point, Chris Raybon. I was going to say that offensive line, it will be much improved. Could be a top 5 offensive line.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, Roma Dunze doesn't need to bounce back. Roma Dunze had a productive rookie season in a very challenging offensive environment in which his quarterback was constantly struggling and a little bit playing hero ball. and didn't quite have the touch on some of the passes that went to Rome Odunze that he probably should have had, and they probably developed better chemistry. Also, don't forget, he had a terrible offensive coordinator, a terrible head coach, and until the middle of the season, none of this was going to get fixed. And then they just put everything in place to have be placeholder for the rest of the year. So, like, I couldn't be more confident right now, which does not bode well for any of this at all. Love the Colston Loveland pick. Love the Luther Burden pick. When Luther Burden was drafted, that was what was lighting up the Chicago Friends text chain was, oh my God, we got Luther Burden. To me, this is a guy with so much upside who got dropped a little bit because for a variety of non-football reasons in the draft. Ryan Poles just got a 5-year contract extension. And I think the enthusiasm of the moment is what got him that deal because he's been able to draft so much talent and make some decent moves, maneuvering the pieces on the board. So, yeah, the Bears. I think it's another one. Talking about the playoffs, like, Simon, I'm trying to figure out, am I being over optimistic with the Bears? Do I see the regression with the Lions? How does Jordan Love and the Packers play into this?
Well, it's tough. I would say because your division and the fact that we know that Caleb had a wasted year. Like, the man had no one watching film. No one was coaching him last year. I'm with you. I wanted to be all in on the Bears. To me, this is like the true rookie year for Caleb. Let him come comfortable in the offense. But me and Chad talk all the time. That year 2 jump, Caleb has all the talent in the world. Him and Ben Johnson, if they're in Capatico in sync, Chad, I mean, I'm with you. Like, if you guys have an 8-1 start, 9-2, holy shit, Bears fans, go crazy. Just because you finally have the quarterback and you have the coach. I get why you're at the very edge of not just going absolutely insane right now because the upside is so exciting for this Bears offense.
Get ready for misery. Raybon, what do you got next?
So the Patriots added rookie running back Travion Henderson. He is extremely fast. I think he could be kind of like that when those James White seasons, like when James White was a monster. That's Henderson's upside in this offense. And then Stephon Diggs, it's kind of going under the radar. And yes, he's coming off an injury and he's going to a new team, but he's going outside the top 40 in most fantasy drafts. And remember, this is, Josh McDaniels coming back here. He had a kind of aging guy in Devontae Adams a couple years ago, his first year when he went to the Raiders, and they just targeted him it was just, they just force fed him the ball. So I think with a guy like Drake May, number one, I think Henderson and Diggs increase the likelihood that Drake May can take, somewhat of a step forward in year 2. Now it's, still learning a new offense. So I'm not going to say he's going to be like a bona fide quarterback 1, but he does have that kind of upside because he can run it too. And he just had the worst supporting cast with just guys who really couldn't create much of anything for him last season. So just adding a guy like Diggs, Henderson, you also added Kyle Williams in the draft. Jury's out on him, but he should get a chance to play some meaningful snaps as well. So just an improved supporting cast from May. I think he's a great quarterback 2 option that you can kind of get if you wait. And Diggs, I think people are underestimating Diggs because maybe his median projection is around that low end wide receiver 3 range, but his ceiling is still much higher. He could be an absolute target monster in this offense because the drop off from Diggs to everybody else, I mean, there's no real contest there. So really like Diggs, and then Henderson is a guy who may be used in that kind of James White role, and it also is creating a little bit of value, I think, on Ramondre Stevenson as well because where he's going, like outside the top 40 at running back, he could still be the lead back, and Henderson, could get, a lot of his touches in the receiving game as well. So I do think there's some intrigue here. And this is another one of these offenses where people just don't really know what to do with it. And so all these guys are kind of going, like, there's no one really going that high in drafts, but I think Drake May is an extremely talented quarterback, and, just going to a competent offense with a competent supporting cast this year. The O-line should be better too. should be night and day for Drake May, even though he's kind of going to that McDaniels offense, which is a new offense. But really think Stephon Diggs is being underrated here.
Quick poll before Simon, you ask Koerner his next question. Quick poll. I've set a line in my head of how many wins Mike Vrabel will be responsible for this season because of excellent, thoughtful coaching decisions. I've got the line in my head. I will tell you if you've gone over or under after everyone gives me their answer. Simon, give me your answer. How many wins is Mike Vrabel personally responsible for because of strategic decisions?
I'll give him 2.
Koerner?
I'm going to go with your line is exactly 1.5.
I like where you're at. You're wrong, but give me your answer.
Yeah, I'll say 1.
Huh, interesting. Okay, Raybon?
I would put the line at 2.5. You're in a division with the Jets, baby. And the Dolphins.
What's your number on how many wins he gets you?
I mean, I think it's gonna be between 2 and 3. Like realistically, like if you look at his the Pythagorean wins versus actual, he's usually above, overperforms somewhere in that range. So yeah, I wouldn't see it out of the question. He's definitely adding at least 1, but I do think he can add multiple. So I'm gonna go somewhere between 2 and 3.
My line was 2.5, and my expectation was 3.
There you go.
Chris Raybon and I, as usual, a midseason mind meld. Simon, take it away.
Sean, you have another great name on the list here. I am another one calling my shot. I am down on Puka. To me, he's one of the most overdrafted players right now in fantasy football. Would not be taking Puka in the first round. You're out of your mind. You're taking a guy with his injury risk. No one's down the talent. It's just, can he stay healthy? Now he's the no doubt number 1. Break it down to me. Devontae Adams, I'm drafting him in every league. I'm all in on Devontae Adams. Him and Stafford, to me, that's the perfect mix in this McVay offense of schemed open receiver and his style, where he is so smooth. Still got it at his old age. I mean, shocking he could burn corners, young 21-year-olds last year on the Jets. Even more motivated this season. Where are you at with Devontae Adams and the Rams?
So first off, I'm not low on Puka at all. That's all you. But I'm in agreement. I'm in agreement with you that this is a good fit. Devontae going to the Rams with McVay. This is his 3rd team in the last 12 months. So I think people are sick of just projecting him on new teams. That's why this might be flying under the radar a bit. Plus, he's 32, so he's clearly in the decline phase of his career. But he looked great last year, so I think he still has 1 or 2 really solid seasons left at least. But I think this is a great landing spot for Matthew Stafford and the Rams offense, who really struggled in goal to go situations last year. Stafford only completed 41% of his passes in goal to go situations, which is 32nd out of 41 quarterbacks. So he only threw 20 touchdowns, which is the fewest in any season of his career where he's played 15 plus games. So that's where I think Adams can immediately make an impact, just being, elite end zone threat for him. So it's going to help boost the incoming positive touchdown regression. But I think it's going to help this offense because, Puka Nacua is great getting the ball down the field and into the red zone, but he hasn't been much of a touchdown guy. And, Cooper Kupp, hate to say it, but he was sort of washed last year and he was banged up. So Stafford didn't really have that second option like he typically does. So that's where Adams is going to step up. And this is really huge for Matthew Stafford, I think. And I can't go a whole show without a player prop. So I would say that the actual advice here is Matthew Stafford's passing touchdown prop is 22.5. I think that's a couple touchdowns too low. So I'm taking that over because he is due for some positive touchdown regression solely due to, Devontae Adams being in the mix this year.
Well, Simon loves Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford. Raybon.
Tutu Atwell, baby. Don't forget about him. He's gonna be a full-time player this year. Got that $10 million deal. So I'm taking a lot of him in best ball as well. Adams is old.
Speaking of receivers.
And Puka's injury prone, to your point.
Raybon. Speaking of receivers, will Matthew be golden in Green Bay?
I think so. I think this golden draft pick for the Packers has the potential to kind of not only work for him in particular. I think he could be the Packers' number one wide receiver this year. I know he's kind of going outside the top 40, right outside the top 40. A lot of people, not sure exactly what his role is going to be, but everything the Packers have done over the last year or so in terms of their front office moves at the receiver position and just, in play calling have kind of told us they just didn't like their receiver room last year. And I think they're looking for a new number one type of guy. Because if you look at last year, they really did not throw the football with Jordan Love. And if you look at Jordan Love's efficiency metrics, Jordan Love was top 5 almost across the board. So Jordan Love really didn't fall off. It wasn't so much of like let's hide Jordan Love. I know he had some interception issues at one point, but he was still excellent in all the, important metrics. He just didn't really throw a lot of passes. And you saw Watson, they were trying to increase his snaps. He got hurt again. Now he's probably out for at least half the season. I think he said he wasn't going to come back till like week 12 or something like that. And then you look at, Romeo Doubs still hasn't had a 100-yard receiving game in the regular season. That's their guy. That's the guy that was getting the most snaps for them. Jaden Reed, like his agent or somebody had to come out and say he's their number one receiver. This guy got 4.4 targets per game last year. That's their supposed number one receiver. Like I think Golden has a massive, massive opportunity right from the jump. Dontavian Wicks runs good routes. Comes time to catch the ball, he doesn't do it. And every time guys have been healthy, Wicks plays like 20%, 25% of the snaps. So they're telling us they see him as a number 4 or 5 guy. Bo Melton, who had some moments, they're playing him at cornerback. Like they just they were not feeling it. So I think with Golden in tow, I think their volume could increase this year, their pass volume. And I think, with Jordan Love, those are the kind of throws he can make down the field. Really hasn't had a guy quite like that. Watson was kind of a speed guy down the field, a little bit of a different player, but they really haven't had a guy like Golden, for Jordan Love. So I think it could increase the value of Golden himself. I think he's going to be the number one when it's all said and done. But I also think Jaden Reed could take a step forward in terms of his numbers just because the Packers are going to pass more. So even if Reed is not the number one, and he could be, but even like he's also going outside the top 40 now. So I think you have value on both of those guys just because Golden's been added to the mix. I think it lets them play Doubs a little bit less and it lets them play Wicks a little bit less. So they're going to have a very talented receiving core. Jordan Love was, very, very good last year. 8.0 yards per attempt. That was 5th in the league. His QBR 69.3, that was 5th in the league. So you just add some volume there. And I think these Packers receivers, these top 2 guys, Reed and Golden, are going to eat regardless. So really like this move for Golden, but I think the path is wide open for him to be that number one because, Doubs really isn't that guy. Wicks, they don't really want to play like that. And Reed, they only play him in 3 wide personnel. So I think that will increase this year because I think they throw more, but that they've pretty much capped his snaps 2 years straight. And now they went out and got, a guy who in the first round. So I think that this is a significant move. I think, when you look at number one receivers, like they've had a 20% of them have ended up finishing as a wide receiver 1 that go in the first round. So it depends on the class year over year, but I think people are kind of sleeping on this year's class because they got drafted into, these crowded spots in terms of, Ibuka, Matthew Golden, but with Golden especially, he has the quarterback and he has the pass to be that number 1. And that's all you can ask for when you're drafting a guy as your wide receiver 4. So I think Golden is a smash. And I think Reed is undervalued as well. And Jordan Love as well.
Seems like a golden opportunity to find some upside, doesn't it, Simon?
Sean, we got to talk about it.
No comment.
The Texans. Who the hell is catching the ball for the Texans this coming season? We know CJ's been putting the ball downfield. He can make nobodies into somebody. Who is the steal of the draft this year for this Texans receiver crew?
Yeah, so my first four were just big moves. I'm not saying I'm drafting a ton of those storylines. This is a guy I am drafting a ton of. So it's Jaden Higgins going to the Texans in round 2. I just love that landing spot. And, they already have Nico Collins, who is, I consider, one of the best receivers in the league. So Higgins' ceiling is still, just the number 2 receiver on this team. But I think, CJ Stroud should bounce back here in year 3, and this offense is more than capable of supporting 2, high-end fantasy wide receivers. And I just love Higgins as a prospect. He's a bigger receiver, 6'4", 215 pounds, really good measurables, really good at catching the ball. He had one of the lowest drop rates in college last year. And ironically, like my comp for him, I tried to find somebody else because this seems lazy, but it's T. Higgins. I mean, no relation, but they're almost like identical. And my comp for Brian Thomas Jr. is Randy Moss. I couldn't find anybody else to comp for him. So I'm just sticking with T. Higgins being my comp for Jaden Higgins. So I think, Stroud could have a high quality number 2 wide receiver. And I know they brought in Christian Kirk, who could soak up some targets. But we have to remember they did lose Stephon Diggs, and Tank Dell had that very unfortunate leg injury at the end of the season last year, so he's probably going to miss the entire season. So there is room for Higgins to be the number 2 target. And defenses, they have to pay attention to Nico Collins, double team him at times. So I think Higgins could make him pay. So he's being drafted just outside the top 50 wide receivers right now, and that's like the perfect range to take a rookie wide receiver that I think people are still overlooking. He's a guy that I could see making a couple splash plays in preseason and have his ADP shoot up. So I've been trying to get ahead of that and drafting Higgins, as much as I can in these early drafts.
All right, let me recap the top 10 offseason moves according to Fantasy Pros, top 10 player projection experts, Sean Koerner and Chris Raybon. Chris said that his biggest move was head coach Liam Cohen to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Sean's biggest move, Travis Hunter to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Chris also likes the combination of Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, Jonnu Smith to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Koerner loves Ashton Genty to the Raiders. Chris, Omario Hampton and Najee Harris to the Chargers. Koerner, kind of an obvious, Captain Obvious, Ben Johnson to the Bears. Not hating it. Chris, Travion Henderson, and Stephon Diggs get to New England, although the biggest impact move there is still going to be Mike Vrabel. Koerner, Devontae Adams to the Rams. Chris, Matthew Golden, receiver to the Packers. Koerner, Jaden Higgins, receiver to the Texans. Get more of this fabulous content and information to win all of your leagues, whatever you're playing, on the Fantasy Flex podcast with Koerner and Raybon. The favorites will return with our next episode Thursday on the Action Network YouTube page when we talk NFL training camp questions. Download us from Spotify, Apple Pods, wherever you get your pods. Rate, review, subscribe. Leave us 5 stars. Say whatever you want. Feedback is a gift. Until next time, love you.